Hey there, welcome to another episode. Today I brought you a topic that's going to mess with your head and, who knows, maybe with your wallet too. The question is simple, but the answer runs deep. What would Jesus do with your credit card? I know, it sounds like a strange question, right? Jesus lived 2,000 years ago. There were no credit cards, no digital banks, no Venmo or Zelle. But stick with me here because we're going to explore something much deeper than just finances. We're going to talk about the heart, about priorities, about what really matters. Think about it. If Jesus were living today, here in our world of instant consumption, of 12-month payment plans with zero interest, of flash sales that pop up on your screen at 3 a.m, how would he deal with it? What would his stance be towards money? And more importantly, what does his stance have to teach us about how we're using our own money, our own credit? I want to start by reminding you of something Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Man, that statement is devastating. It reveals a truth we sometimes don't want to face. You want to know what you really value? Look at where your money goes. Look at your credit card statement. It's an X-ray of your soul, a mirror of your real priorities, not the ones you pretend to have on social media. So before we imagine Jesus with a credit card in his hand, we need to understand what his relationship was with money, with material possessions, with everything the world had to offer. And I guarantee you, it's going to be revolutionary. All right then, to understand what Jesus would do with a credit card, we need to look at how he lived. And when you really start looking, the first thing that jumps out is Jesus chose simplicity. He didn't own a home. There's a passage in Matthew chapter 8, verse 20, where Jesus says, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Man, think about that. The creator of the universe, walking the earth without a fixed address, without property in his name. Now, before you think, oh, so Jesus was against having things, hold on. That's not it. Jesus wasn't preaching mandatory poverty. He had wealthy friends like Joseph of Arimathea. He accepted very expensive perfume being poured over him. That story in John chapter 12. The point wasn't to be poor for the simple sake of being poor. The point was, don't let things possess you. And here's the big problem with credit cards, my friend. They create an illusion. The illusion that you can have now what you haven't earned yet. They give you purchasing power that isn't real. And you know what happens? We start living beyond our means. We start building a life of appearances. And suddenly we're trapped. Trapped in debt, trapped in endless payments, trapped in interest rates that seem like leeches sucking our peace away. Jesus spoke about this very directly in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. He didn't say it's difficult. He said it's impossible. Either God is your Lord or money is. And the credit card? It can be a useful tool, yes, but it can also be a cruel master that will enslave you. So let's imagine the scene. Jesus with a credit card in his wallet. What would be the first principle he'd follow? I believe it would be this: spend only what you have. Sounds obvious, right? But look at how many people completely ignore this. The credit card becomes an artificial extension of income, and not what it should be, just a convenient form of payment. Jesus taught about stewardship, about taking good care of what's been entrusted to us. There's an amazing parable in Luke chapter 16, the parable of the dishonest manager. And at the end of that story, Jesus says something powerful in verse 10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. Man, this applies directly to our money. If you can't manage $100 well, how are you going to manage 1,000? If you can't control spending on your card when it has a low limit, what's going to happen when the bank raises your limit? And you know what I notice? The entire system is designed for you to spend more. The bank raises your limit not because you need it, but because they want you to get more in debt. Stores offer interest-free installments not out of kindness, but because they know you'll buy more things if you don't feel the immediate impact on your wallet. All of this is behavioral psychology being used against you. Would Jesus use a credit card? Maybe yes, as a tool. But he would never use revolving credit, never pay compound interest, never carry a balance. Why? Because in Romans chapter 13, verse 8, Paul, inspired by Jesus' teaching, wrote, "Let no debt remain outstanding, except the continuing debt to love one another." Debt is modern slavery, my friend. And Jesus came to set us free, not to imprison us. Now let's go deeper. If Jesus had a credit card, where would his money go? What would he spend it on? And here we find something transformative. Jesus spent with purpose. He spent on people, on real needs, on the kingdom of God. We don't see Jesus buying things to impress anyone. We don't see him accumulating possessions. We don't see him chasing status. There's a wonderful story in Luke chapter 19, the story of Zacchaeus, the tax collector. When Zacchaeus meets Jesus, he says, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." And you know what Jesus responds? Today salvation has come to this house. Zacchaeus' transformation wasn't just spiritual, it was financial. The way he saw and used money changed completely. Now look at your credit card statement. Look honestly, how much was spent on things that really matter? How much was spent feeding your ego, your anxiety, your existential emptiness disguised as "I deserve it"? We live in a culture that constantly says, "You deserve this, you deserve that." And look, there are things you really do deserve, that are necessary, that are legitimate. But there's a lot of stuff we buy that's nothing more than an emotional band-aid, a temporary anesthetic for a deeper pain. Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 10, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Abundant life doesn't come from having more things. Abundant life comes from being free, being light, being aligned with your purpose. And I ask you, how many purchases you made in the last month brought you closer to that abundant life? How many pushed you away? How many left you more trapped, more anxious, more empty? There's another crucial aspect here. Jesus was extremely generous. His entire life was an act of generosity. He gave time, attention, miracles, teachings, and, in the end, his own life. And when we look at his teachings about money, generosity shows up all the time. In Luke chapter 6, verse 38, Jesus says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Now imagine Jesus looking at your statement and seeing restaurant, clothes, streaming, delivery, more clothes, gas, gym, cosmetics. And where's the generosity? Where are the offerings? Where's the money being used to bless other people? And look, I'm not saying you can't spend on yourself. That's not it. But when 100% of your income goes to you and 0 goes to the kingdom, to important causes, to people in need, there's something very wrong there. Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan, that guy who saw someone wounded on the road and not only stopped to help, but spent money from his own pocket. He paid for the guy's lodging, promised to pay more if necessary. This is in Luke chapter 10. His generosity cost something real, tangible. It wasn't just feelings, it was action. It was money leaving the account. And you know what the problem is? We live so tight, so in debt, so committed to payments and more payments, that we've lost the ability to be generous. We no longer have financial margin to help anyone because all our money is already committed to things that, let's be honest, we don't even remember why we bought. This isn't freedom. This is prison. There's something that needs to be said here, and it might be the hardest of all. Jesus wouldn't be moved by advertising. He wouldn't fall for the marketing strategies that bombard us every day. You know why? Because he knew the human heart better than any marketing professional ever will. He knew that behind every impulse purchase there's an unmet emotional need, a spiritual emptiness we're trying to fill with things. In Mark chapter 4, Jesus tells the parable of the sower, and there's a part in verse 19 that's frightening. But the worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. Man, the deceitfulness of wealth. Jesus knew that money deceives. It promises happiness and delivers anxiety, promises security and delivers fear of losing, promises identity and delivers emptiness. When you pick up your phone and see that ad perfectly targeted at you, that offer that seems too good to be true, that influencer showing a lifestyle you should have, what's happening? You're being manipulated. And it's not a conspiracy theory, it's literally the business model. Companies spend billions studying how to make you feel you need things you don't need. Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 and 20, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven." You know what this means in practice? It means you need to stop and ask, this purchase I'm about to make, does it build something eternal or something temporary? Does it invest in what really matters, or does it feed a system that wants to keep me dissatisfied forever? Now let's talk about something that might make you a bit uncomfortable: planning and wisdom. Jesus deeply valued this. In Luke chapter 14, verse 28, he asks, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it?" This is basic financial planning, my friend. It's looking ahead, calculating, having wisdom. But what do? We swipe the card without thinking. We click buy now without checking the balance. We accept the payment plan without doing the math of how much is already committed in the coming months. And then, when the statement arrives, comes the desperation, comes the anxiety, comes that feeling of drowning. And you know whose fault it is? Ours. Not the cards, not the banks, not the stores. Ours for lack of planning, for lack of self-control, for lack of wisdom. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." Diligence is the opposite of impulsiveness. It's thinking before acting. It's having a budget. It's knowing exactly how much comes in, how much goes out, where every penny goes. Does it sound boring? Does it sound like work? It might be. But you know what's even more boring? Living in debt, living with that weight on your chest, living without financial peace. If Jesus had a credit card, he would have a budget. He would know exactly how much he could spend. He wouldn't be surprised by the statement. Why? Because he valued wisdom, prudence, responsibility. And these aren't just pretty words to decorate a sermon. They're practical principles that transform lives when applied. So, we've reached the end of this conversation. But before you go, I need to leave you with something practical. Something you can do today. First, grab your credit card statement. Seriously, grab it now. Look at each item honestly. Ask yourself, does this reflect my real values? Does this bring me closer to God or push me away? Am I being a faithful steward of what's been entrusted to me? Second, if you're in debt, stop running. Face the situation head on. Make a plan. Cut what needs to be cut. Seek help if necessary. In Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7 it says, "The borrower is slave to the lender." You weren't called to be a slave to banks. You were called to be free in Christ. And third, start using your money with eternal purpose. Be generous. Invest in the kingdom. Help people. Because at the end of the day, when you stand before God, He's not going to ask how many points you accumulated on your card, but what you did with what He gave you. So what would Jesus do with your credit card? He would use it with wisdom, moderation, purpose, and generosity. And you, what are you going to do with yours? If this episode touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And tell me in the comments what hit you the hardest today. Let's continue this conversation. Hugs and see you next time.